Hari Om. Yesterday, I was talking about Atma, the chapter 2, and Shri Krishna has started his argument with the identification with Atma and not with body and sensory organs and the gross, the world, that manifested world that we see. Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that the goal of our life is to realize this nature of our own self, that is Atma. So, realization of Atma is the goal of life. Now, I just want to bring that example of the chariot again back. There is often a discussion, what is it that we want to do in our life? We have many dreams, we have many ideas, we have many goals, we have many purposes. Generally, we say that I want to have a lot of money, or I want to have a big house, a big property, I want to have many pleasures in this life. Let's analyze this from the example of the chariot that I gave you. The example of chariot, I told you that there are 5 horses which are our sensory organs. The rein, the strings that hold the horses is the mind, and that rein is in the hands of the chariot driver, which is our intellect. And the owner of the chariot is Atma. Now, the goals of our life, we can divide first material life. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the skin, the tongue, they keep telling us what should we have. We want to have this nice looking house, nice looking car, nice looking phone and all of that. That's our sensory organs telling us. I want to eat very nice food. That's my sensory organ. So, most of the goals which are connected with money are connected with sensory organs and sensory desires. The other material goal is again about power and ego. Power, I want to control. That is again connected with our sensory organs. If we keep these goals in our life, what is happening is these sensory goals, sensory desires, they pull my mind to those objects of sensory desires, and then that mind pulls my intellect. So, I start thinking, how can I earn more and more and more and more money, so I can have more costly phones, I can have more costly, better cars. Why better cars? Because they make my eyes feel very nice, they make my skin feel very good. Oh, you travel in this car and you don't feel that you're traveling. That's a pleasure, it's a sensory pleasure. So, my intellect is helping my mind is helping my sensory organs achieve those goals. That's my material life, that's the goal of my material life. Shri Krishna has given a different goal. Look at the direction. He says, instead of looking towards the sensory organs as the purpose of your life, look at the Atma as the purpose of your life. And I told you, Atma is the idea of connection, interconnected consciousness. The idea is the Atma of equality. The idea is a concept of divinity. So, when I look at the Atma, the intellect is following the Atma. The intellect controls the mind and turns the mind to the Atma, and that mind turns the sensory organs towards the intellect and Atma. This is spiritual dimension. I am going to explain these 2 directions to you. The material goals that we have, the sensory organs that pull us, is there a limit? We have to ask ourselves. Probably you will have a goal. There was some surveys, they were done. Younger people, they were asked, teenagers were asked, adults were asked, what is your goal? And 80% of them said money and objects related to money, car, property, These goals, does it have any limit? If you get $1 million, what happens? Do you think that's it? No, you say now I want 2 million. When you get 2, you say I want 10. The goals have no limit. When you taste very nice food, does your desire to eat food stop there? No, you want to taste even better food somewhere. People travel from one continent to another continent just to eat food. There was one funny study that was done. Same wine was put into 2 different glasses. And one was given as a cheap wine and the second one was given as very costly wine. But the wine was same. And everyone who tasted these 2 wines could figure out that they are different because of the price tag that was put on it. So it's our mind that just wants things better, but we really don't know what is better. Because everything that you go for in the name of better or even higher, there's no limit to it. Look at the clothes. You can get a simple t-shirt for $2 or you can get a t-shirt for more than $500. There's no limit to that. If you look at what is happening in these goals, or when you eat a chocolate, what happens? You feel happy. If you get a nice cloth, what happens? You feel great. If you get a nice phone, what happens? You feel great. What is it? We have to think. Where is that happiness coming from? Where is that joy and pleasure coming from? It comes from your own brain. There are certain chemicals in your brain that are secreted. The neurotransmitters, neurochemicals. And these chemicals create the sensation of pleasure. So can we say that when you eat a chocolate, it's actually a knowledge of the brain that this particular substance creates these chemicals and makes me feel happy or makes me feel the pleasure sensation. So it's actually a knowledge. It's actually a information that's there, or it's a learned condition of your brain, or wisdom, you can say. This is material dimension I'm talking about. So the knowledge is there as the source of everything. Earning more money and feeling happy is a knowledge that we have acquired. But then yoga says that the spiritual knowledge goes beyond that. Through the process of meditation, you can learn that you can be happy without chocolate. That's also a knowledge. So this is that other direction, the spiritual direction that I am talking about. Learning that I have earned a lot of money, but the money really doesn't make me happy. This is what Buddha learned. He was a king, he was a prince, but he learned that it really doesn't make me happy. This is a wisdom. This is that Atma direction, the second direction. If you look at these 2 dimensions, the chocolate that I eat gives me pleasure, but I learned that the chocolate, without chocolate also, I can be happy. This is also wisdom. Look at the difference between these 2 wisdoms. When I eat the chocolate, I get pleasure. Understand the nature of this pleasure. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, Shri Krishna has very clearly mentioned this difference. Now he is talking about the material pleasures, the sensory pleasures. So let's talk about it first. He says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agama paino anityaha tan stitikshasva bharata. Says, hey Arjuna, The pleasure that you get with these sensory organs, sensory desires, is momentary. It doesn't last long. If you eat sugar, it gives you temporary happiness, but it gives you a long-term suffering. Now it's very well known that eating too much sugar causes diabetes, but just not diabetes, causes hypertension, just not hypertension. It's responsible for heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases. There's a lot of evidence now with the studies. So the sugar that you think is giving you pleasure is actually giving you pain. I gave you one example of sugar. Take example of anything. New clothes. You think they give you pleasure? Well, how long they remain new? After a few days when they get old, you feel sad. It's torn. New phone. Oh, very happy. You have a scratch on that glass of the new phone. How do you feel? Sad. So the same phone that made you happy is giving you suffering. If you don't get scratch, fair enough. But when you see someone else next to you having a better phone than yours, then whatever is your phone, it still makes you feel sad. So the idea here is very simple. The object that brings you pleasure, sensory pleasure, is the same object that will give you suffering and pain. So Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna that leave this experience of pleasure and pain connected with sensory organs, because it's the nature of those sensory desires, and they are not important for you. So everything that comes with money, everything that comes with ego, everything that comes with power has its own limitations. It may give you pleasure, but it will certainly bring pain with it as well. There's a very interesting study that was done. I'll just very briefly tell you. There were two monkeys, they were brought into research lab, and in that research lab they were kept in a small glass enclosures open from top, and the glass enclosures, both enclosures had two holes. A researcher went to the first monkey and the researcher tried to give an object, non-eatable object. The monkey didn't know what it is. It took it, checked it, smelled it, realized it's nothing that it can eat. It just dropped it. But the researcher through the other hole asked the monkey to give that object back. The monkey didn't understand, but finally he gave it back. The moment he gave that back, the researcher gave the monkey a small piece of cucumber, very nice juicy cucumber. And the monkey smelled it, he was very happy. The second monkey was watching the first monkey, say, what is happening? Oh, he got something. Oh, cucumber. Oh, wow, I didn't get it. But anyway, the first monkey was eating it and he was very happy. While he was eating, he was showing it to the second monkey. Look what I am eating. It happened 3-4 times. The researcher went to the second monkey. And the researcher gave the object, the same object, non-eatable object, to the second monkey. The monkey learned from the experience of the first monkey. So this monkey didn't even bother to smell. He just gave that object back and asked for cucumber. But instead of cucumber, the researcher gave this monkey a very nice, sweet, big, juicy grape. The monkey was even more happy. He smelled it. But when he got it, what he did was very interesting. He showed it to the first monkey. The first monkey was surprised, say, oh, instead of cucumber, he got grape. So the second monkey was also happy. Then the researcher came to the first monkey and gave the object again. Now this monkey immediately gave that object back and asked for a grape. But instead of grape, the researcher gave him cucumber. You know what happened? You can imagine. The first monkey got so angry that he threw the cucumber at researcher because he wanted grape. Just see the situation without getting involved in the story. First time he got cucumber, he was happy. Second time he got cucumber, he was angry and sad. The object that gives you pleasure often gives you pain. Buddha, he was a prince and king. He had all the pleasures of his life. His kingdom was rich, prosperous. People had a lot of respect for him, so he had power. He had all the pleasures, he had the money. He was married, he was a family man, he had a son. Everything was perfect for him. But he was not happy. And then, how did he become happy? He gave up all these sensory desires and objects of pleasure, gave up everything. No family, no money, no power, no kingdom. Left in the forest. This is that second dimension of that Atma that I am talking about. Now, Shri Krishna further highlights the pain and suffering aspect of this stress, of this anxiety, of this depression, of this anger that comes with the sensory desires and ego. The sensory desires and ego, they are the material dimensions. These two gives rise to this negative experience. If you really study the stress, anxiety, anger, depression, what is it actually? When you experience stress, at that moment study yourself. What is happening? Whatever the situation is, whatever the events are taking place, or whatever is the demand on you, placed on you by the circumstances, you are unable to take the right decision. There is not enough wisdom to make this situation understandable to you. So, jnana, the wisdom is not there. Maybe information overload is the reason, or maybe there are internal conflicts. Maybe your previous experiences and whatever is happening, there's mismatch there. Or maybe your conditionings are creating conflict, or maybe the ethics and morality that you know is making a mess of your state of mind. But what all of these internal conflicts are doing or confusions are doing is they are taking away your ability to make the right decision. And the right decision is based on the right perception. I'll tell you a very short story. There was a soldier and he had a fear of water, as he didn't know how to swim. And that fear of water resulted in fear of boats. So he could not travel on a boat. And if he would get on the boat, he would have panic attack. One day he was asked by the king to join a journey on a boat. He could not refuse the king, so he had to go there. But when he got on the boat, when the boat started, poor soldier, he had a panic attack. When he had a panic attack, it was awful. He was shouting, he was crying, he was saying he can't breathe, he was saying he's going to die now. It was quite sad for the king to see that panic attack. So the king said to the captain, please turn the boat, we will drop him to the doctor. The captain was a wise man. He said, my dear king, give me a few minutes. I will try one technique. If it works, we don't have to go back. King said, okay, but be gentle and kind. Captain said, no problem, my dear king, I will do that. After 5 minutes, the captain came back. The king asked him how the soldier is feeling. Captain said, "My dear king, please, you have a look at him, you sir." The king went to see that, and what he saw surprised him. The soldier was very calm and quietly sitting on the boat. He said, "What did you do?" The captain said, "I didn't do much. I just went there and then I pushed him in the water." "Are you crazy?" "And then what happened?" "He started drowning. Then I pulled him out of the water. Then I put him in the boat. Then he's fine." How come this transformation happened? The captain said that, "My dear king, before he used to fear that if he sits in the boat will drown him. That was the knowledge that he had. And that made him scared. When I put him in the water, he started drowning. So he experienced what is drowning. And then after that drowning experience, when I put him in the boat again, his knowledge of the boat changed. He realized that in the boat you don't drown, but actually boat saves you from drowning." And that made him calm. So what happened? His wisdom brought change into his experience, and the anxiety and stress gone. It's the wisdom, it's the knowledge that is necessary for us to deal with this negativity is created out of sensory experiences, our desires, our ego. And what is that knowledge? And that knowledge is that first example of the chariot I was giving you. The knowledge is, instead of the sensory organs as our purpose and life goal, the Atma becomes a life goal. A very interesting story of Buddha is there. Buddha was sitting under a tree in a town, and some young boys came there to blame him because they thought that he is not a right person. He might be a thief or someone who is trying to cheat us. So they started saying something bad about Buddha. Buddha was very quiet. He didn't say a word. This went on for an hour. The boys used many bad words for him. Buddha was very quiet. After an hour, one of the boys thought that, oh, maybe I should check if this man can hear me or hear us. So he went up to Buddha and he said, "Hello, mister, can you hear me?" Buddha opened his eyes, smiled and said, "Yes, I can hear you." Say, "Ah, you can speak?" Say, "Yes." Say, "Ah, did you get what we gave you?" Buddha smiled and said, "Look, what you want to give was your choice. If I want to accept it or not, it's my choice. I don't think what you said describes me. So I don't agree with your opinion. That's all. So there is no reason for me to get angry." This is wisdom. The wisdom has allowed Buddha to control his anger and stress or maybe sadness. So this wisdom comes with the Atma direction. What is this Atma direction that I am talking about? Yesterday I talked about Atma as the idea of equality and idea of connections, interconnected awareness, interconnected consciousness. How does it reflect in our life? I'm going to speak about it tomorrow also, but I want to finish on a very interesting research that was done by Harvard, one of the topmost medical schools in the world, universities. A 75-year-old research, probably the longest, which studied adults' behavior. Around 724 men were studied for 75 years for their health and happiness from different backgrounds. And the conclusion of that study is fantastic. The people who were healthiest were happiest. And what was common in them? Did they have a lot of money? Money and power and fame actually had no role to play in their health and happiness. What was the role? What played the role, the significant role? That was their relationships. The relationships either were personal relationships, family relationships, friends, or society. And these relationships kept them healthy and happy. What is this relationship? How do you build relationships? Relationships are built when you understand the person as equal. The relationships are built when that equality brings unconditional love into your heart. Relations are not built by give and take. Relations are only built by give, give, give and give. And what do you give? You sacrifice your desires for the person. If you have a chocolate, you eat it. You get sensory pleasure. But if you have a chocolate and you share it, you build a relationship. And that building relationship still makes you happy. This is Atma direction. That interconnected consciousness is our purpose of life, purpose of our karmas. So every action, if it is in this direction, that connection is not necessarily only with people, it's with every object in the mother nature. That's why when you go and see the sunrise, it makes you feel happy. What is there? So hot, right now it's so hot. You don't feel it. When you see the sun, brings you the energy because it's that Atma experience. When you see this beautiful waterfall from the nature, it brings you that happiness. That's Atma dimension. When you see a little child, very young child, smiling, which is beyond desires and ego, that child awareness is beyond desires and ego, that makes you smile, that makes you happy, is Atma dimension. When you serve someone, when you help someone, that makes you happy, that is Atma dimension. I'm going to give you a last example, very interesting example. When there is something bad happening into your friend's life, you are of course sad, your friend is of course sad. There's no doubt about it. But then when you go and meet your friend, you gave your friend a hug. You have tears for your friend. What does your friend feels like? Does he feel sad or good? Does he feel happy in that sadness? Do you feel happy in that sad event? If you think you feel happy, that is the Atma connection. That is that interconnected consciousness which should become the goal of our life. So I'm going to stop here today. Hari Om.